The following conversation was recorded at e-flux Screening Room in New York on Tuesday, September 5th, during a retrospective screening of selected works by Laure Prouvost. This screening was followed by a conversation between the artist and writer-curator Kathy Noble.
You are listening to the e-flux podcast.
Hello, everyone. Hi. It's great to see such a full house. Thank you for coming. My name is Omma JE, and I am Director of Programs at e-flux. And Lucas Brzezinski, and he is Curator of Film. We're both very happy to start a new season of programs tonight with this retrospective screening of works by artist Laure Prouvost. It's the first of many exciting programs we have this month, featuring talks on art and criticism in architecture and music performances, as well as several film programs. So it is my pleasure to welcome you back, Laure. Laure had a solo show at e-flux back in 2015 when our space was in Lower East Side. She's also collaborated with us on curating a very beautiful online program at the beginning of the pandemic. So it's very good to have you, Laure. As I'm sure many of you are familiar, Laure is known for her humorous and idiosyncratic work, often presented in the form of immersive film and mixed media installations. She plays with language as a tool for the imagination and is interested in confounding linear narratives and expected associations among words, images, and meaning. At once seductive and jarring, her approach to filmmaking employs layered storytelling, quick edits, montage, and wordplay, which is composed of a rich tactile assortment of images, sounds, and spoken and written phrases. Important to mention that her show Laure Prouvost, Stranded by Your Side, opens this Thursday at Lisson Gallery and will be on view till October 15, so please go see it. And after the films, which Laure will introduce shortly, she will be in conversation with a New York-based curator and writer, Kathy Noble. Welcome, Kathy. Kathy is currently Senior Curator at Performa and previously Interdisciplinary Curator at Tate Modern. Kathy has commissioned and collaborated with several artists, to name a few: Yvonne Reina, Kevin Beasley, Anna Teresa de Kirmeister, Rabia Mroué, and Laure Prouvost, of course. And her essays have appeared in books and magazines such as Art Forum, Frieze, and Mousse. And now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Laure to say a few words.
Thank you, Amal. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you all for being here. We're happy to be inside now in the cold. It's like winter time, but the other way around. I just will introduce a little bit each film you're going to see. Actually, it's a completely different program that was announced online. I just changed my mind today, so sorry if you wanted to see the other ones. But you'll see what we've decided to show at the end. I'm gonna show you 5 films. I mean, it's hard to choose at this point in my life. I've made a bit too many pieces. So I'm always like, oh, what about this one or that one? But I thought I should show pieces that maybe people haven't seen here in New York or in the States. So I'm showing first a piece called What, which is 2 backwards, but with a dyslexic spelling, so it's O-W-T, because I couldn't spell it properly. Anyway, it's about, it was an invitation to work with a curator to do a short interview with someone and work with that idea, how you play with that. So it's called, it was shown in a small room. It's about from 2010, so it's a very early work. And you had to go through a room, and as soon as you enter, there's a big bang, and the film starts. It's very physical, and you need to concentrate. So you'll see. Be careful. Then we have Finger Pointing Green, which is also an old piece, which I just rediscovered. I showed it recently at Feed Marseille. They basically digged in my archive, and they decided to show this piece, and it's a lot about the idea of how do you filmmaking or being annoyed with things around. You'll see. It's very short, 3 minutes. They're both 3 minutes. And then I'm showing Parlaient Idéale, which is the film from Venice Biennial. I don't know if some of you have seen it and some have not. And I thought it's nice to see it in a screening setting, and for those who haven't seen it, to see it. And it plays a lot. It's Parlaient Idéale, so it's really pre-COVID. It's like we have ideals and we have perspectives, and we dream of a way of being, and it's also about being invited in a setup like Venice, with this system of pavilion and who gets in, how do you get in, and trespassing. It's a lot around trespassing, finding your way, and that was shown in. You would enter through the back doors. You had to climb stairs and walk on some lagoon, watery thing, and you'd push a lot of curtain, and poof, you're swallowed by an octopus, kind of thing, and you watch the film. So that's the second film, and that's about 27 minutes. So it's the longest piece you'll see today. And then there's Every Sunday Grandma. It's my grandma. She loves flying in the air, so you'll see her flying. That's her thing. And that was shown, that was a new piece actually done last year for the new museum, a national museum in Oslo. So a very, very large installation, and it was projected on enormous wall to kind of break the walls and go. And it was a very large installation where you go through tunnels and back in and out, and you're surrounded by birds who are evolved in funny ways with this world we live in. And the last one, which Shadow Does, is a piece, shortish, it's like 8-9 minutes from, it's part of a trilogy around OMA JE, Omma in English, in German is grandma, je suis grand-mère, I am grandma. And it's a child who's writing a letter to her grandma of how the world is, and it's projected usually on a piece of fabric, and you sit in the gatherings in little tents. So nice to be in this big tent with you, and thank you, and enjoy.
Oh, thank you, Laure. That was quite intense. I feel like I met you right before you made the first film. I think I met you in about 2009 in London. So watching that just kind of takes me back in time to that moment. I think I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to just ask you some questions about some general themes that come up across the work, I think. And then maybe you can touch on more specific things to do with some of them in the middle of all of that, but whatever you want. One of the things that people always bring up when they talk about Laure's work, and Laure always brings up herself too, is language and communication. And I think it's fairly obvious in some of those videos, the way that kind of threads through that. And I guess actually the first work I ever saw of yours was your sign paintings, which are these black and white paintings with either telling you directions or phrases that are slightly inconsistent or wrong. Maybe you could talk just a little bit about where you started in terms of the linguistic side of things.
I think first I was not very good at language. I think at school, so it was always a struggle or something I had to tackle. And then I moved to London, and it became even more, language became really this material to work with or to question or to misunderstand, re-understand, and really use it as clay, or looking at it always as a foreigner. You also misunderstand, misinterpret, and make your own meaning of certain situations or places. And I think they became really something I tried to escape for a long time. So I'm doing art to not have to work with words. and then they became very central. I had to tackle, and but I also love how word creates vision, images, propose of a way of with the sign. Say ideally here would be a big, large window where you get some fresh air, or you start creating your own window. You start creating your own fresh air, the own view. So it gives a lot of space for the imagination. And
I feel like you always just want to create a sense of confusion in the viewer.
Yeah, I think questioning systems, I think, is like belonging to a system. I think in France, when I studied, it was a very rigid system, and you had to belong to that system. And I was trying to create another system, my own system, of trespassing words, actually, trespassing language. And I think maybe...
Or in a way, the failure of language. Like, you always see the ridiculousness in things.
Yeah, I guess, it's the central part of human being, but we're also never really articulate for feeling, or for these things that you can't articulate or put in words. And I guess it came from that. But I guess film was really the first medium I used to, and then they became signs.
And that film you made with Mike O'Connor, right?
Yeah, that was actually commission. It was a Tank TV, which asked 5 artists to make a piece as an interview, and so sort of the power of the interviewer, the power structure of words, of image, of the art world, of history. So there's a lot of things coming in that piece, I guess.
I feel like in the series of films we just saw, you can see quite a radical transformation or transition in the way you make films. Like, you've gone from something that's very, very lo-fi to something that's feels lo-fi at the end with the shadow play, but actually everything's becoming much more highly constructed. Maybe you could talk a little bit about
I guess
kind of how you became a filmmaker or video maker, and then how you see that change.
It was, so I started as was really film and video at St. Martin's with John Smith as a tutor, then John Latham, who was someone I assisted, a great artist, a London conceptual artist. And it was a lot of intake, and I think it started very much I don't know, it maybe it looks more slick. I think it's the more you work, the more precise you want to become, maybe, and editing became, when I'm editing, I keep pushing and I keep adding layers to or sound to contradict image, or image to so it's very much the first film was just single shot for like 5 minutes and a narrative on top, and slowly it became much more that. So I think with what, which It, I wanted to make a film which was 3D without 3D, or can you make something which is not what it is, So constantly, can it be a sculpture? Can it be? Can the film turn into smell, or can my film, like Mark Spellinger used to say, "Oh, your film stinks," or can you do that? Can you create? Can you add?
Purely through language?
Yeah, through language and density as well, I think, of elements, through sounds. And sounds became more and more dominant.
And do you script things? Like the finger painting is... No, a lot of what you do feels very improvised on one level, but then I know other parts are really constructed.
I mean, it's all grows from pointing green. I think it was from a series around the 1T, the grandfather, the artist position, the female artist, the male artist, and it was about. It was also a part of an installation, so it would point. The video would instruct you to do things in the exhibition space. So it became, these things were just like, I need to tell people to look behind the table, so I'm going to film that now. And then things comes in, and you let life enter, and then you're surprised, and there's element there.
It's very different watching your films just as a straight-on screening situation than it is seeing your work in an installation. Because your installations are magical and very chaotic, and often through them, you're creating all these kind of physical sensations of confusion within the viewer that then play off the film.
Yeah, and you get more space. I think it's quite hard in a screening room because it's like one thing after the other. Like it's really a bombardment. Like the first film, a bit like the focus. It's I do both. I show in screenings, but I think the work is ideally is in its own environment, and it has space for you to take in and escape, and leaves more opening doors and. Usually they firstly made, apart from the first one, actually, they were made for screenings, and I think the new one are much more made in thinking of shows or within a
thinking of a spatial situation.
Yeah, and often from an invitation, like my grandma was in this huge hall, so it was really, she was just floating, she was less a film, she was more there.
Sculptural.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
Can we talk? I think one of the other things that comes up in all your work, or just knowing you, is journeys, people going on journeys, people going on quite dreamlike, cathartic journeys. And often there's this relationship between the kind of natural world and the man-made world, and then the like unconscious, conscious, the inside-outside thing going on. I think that probably comes across most overtly in this series of films, at least. But I've seen a lot of your films. I think in the one you made in Venice, though, maybe you could talk a bit more in depth about how you made that film, how you brought together the group of people. You actually went on a journey to make it. Maybe you could just kind of go through how that was shaped.
Yeah, I think this idea of migration became more and more present. I migrated tiny bit in a few countries, not so far, but still this idea of displacement and inventing, finding your ways, and also understanding this the large scale of the global world we live in, and this migration, but also being a foreigner as a tool at the beauty of not speaking the right language, using the perfect things. And I think when France asked me to do the pavilion, I was like, oof, I haven't lived there for a really long time. What is France? What is nation? What is where do we come from? What does that? So I thought we should go on a trip, a road trip, to sort of feel, and the idea was to start like we were all, each of us were a bit like a tentacle with its own brain, like an octopus has 9 brains, having 5 hearts. So we were like 8 or 7 characters, and I did an open call for a nudist, for a priest, for a teacher. So there's a teacher, there's a priest, there's a nudist.
Oh, there's an actual priest.
Yeah, from Burkina Faso. So there's just dancer, an actor. There's each of them has very much. One was Nicolas was half blind or almost blind. So each of them has their own take on the work or on the world, I guess. And they
have their own skill as well.
Yeah, and there's a magician, and the magician was very important to me. The magic of filmmaking, of editing, of cutting and things appears, and making worlds and making. So we started in Paris because that's usually where the invitation came from, the capital, in the Tour Nuage, which is iconic place in the suburb of Paris. And from there we start feeling the world. We went to the north of France, where I'm from, Roubaix, which is a highly industrial and a bit left a city that had to reinvent itself after industrialization. And so it was really looking into, and then it was also for me very emotional to go back there. I haven't been for a long time, and we went to this little local cafe where this huge migration of was mostly Moroccan because of work at the time. So and then we had this amazing magician who suddenly the streets, he's quite famous in France, the magician in the film. So it's like, oh, Kinder Bueno's here, and everyone was looking out of the window, and it became really this magical moment with goosebumps. And
how
things were
staged
floating.
was everything? Like, how much did you script that, or did
I
you
knew
really
I
just
wanted
go
to
on
do a scene of magic in a cafe, a very local cafe in the north of France, and levitate all the weight as well of the past, or and about filmmaking, so it was, and it was for me, it was in 5 sections, 5 sequences, and each one had one was the subconscious in the Palais Idéale du facteur Cheval, who is this postman who created his palace with stone he collected between when he was posting letters, and he created his ideal palace. And then for me, it was really the idea of the depth of wanting to create or to invent, and that's human desire to make and invent and create your dream palace or your dream world or your dream language. And I think that's what I wanted that. And then there's Marseille, where it was about the Mediterranean, all the beauty of it, but also the drama of migration, and then it was about show. You show off. You're in Venice. Everyone comes, and who are you? What do you represent? What do you show in a setup, which is also extremely complex politically, and so it was really done in that way, I think, and the joy of going to Venice in a group, and for all these people, we were still all very dear friends, and
So in a way, they made it with you collaboratively?
yeah, we really worked together. I mean, I wrote quite a lot of the words, but yeah, it was really, I would edit as at the end of filming. I kept filming and adding elements, and yeah, but it was very much it was a real collaboration also with the musician. And
Watching it here was very different than seeing it in Venice.
Yeah.
But you made the audience go in the back door in Venice.
Yeah,
and then,
Yeah, it was nice to hear it surround. I haven't heard it surround for a long time, so it's like, thank you for a great room. But it's it was highly collaborative. And during when it was there, there's a lot of the performers, the people who participated were there in the room, so they would sing along when they're on the bridge inside the room, and they might dance in front of the screen and
How
take
much freedom did you have in the Giardini? I'm surprised the person was allowed to jump off the roof.
Yeah. I didn't tell them. Just
yeah, I'm surprised. I'm not surprised.
We found the ways, and you go, you trespass a bit.
What did he land on?
He was flew off. There's a lot of wink, of course, of Yves Klein. There's Agnès Varda. I won't tell you where he ended up. I'd be in trouble if not.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about, I think, another thread that reappears, and it's appeared in these works, but in much of what you've done, is grandfather, grandma, different kind of narrations around ancestors, the role of those people, searching for those people, the kind of status of those people.
Yeah, I think it started, I always made people, I always made characters. I think the granddad became an important figure in terms of I could say things that, or I take the position of my grandma, she says things that I would never dare say. I didn't say, well, it's my grandma. Or, you can say things that you don't dare through another character, or that's wrong, or that's completely off. And the grandparents, I think they were really this. I think I wanted character. I don't know how it really happened, but at first it was I think Tate invited me to do a piece on Kurt Schwitter's Mersban in the Lake District in the north of England, and then I have to talk. First I was like, oh, they just invited me because my granddad's friend of Kurt Schwitter's, and I was a bit pissed off. But then I started making a film about their life, living in a shed, and him digging a tunnel to Africa as his last concept. And it's like this crazy artist that no one understands. And then the grandmother came more and more in the narrative. She's like this artist who's also been left on the side a bit. And she wants to, so she uses sculpture to make them useful and make a bean or make a tray out of the painting. So she starts, as the two characters start to grow together, and she becomes more and more, because he's lost in a tunnel anyway, my granddad, and that's been years now, and we can't find him. So I moved on to my grandma. She's around, she helps me in the studio, she makes tapestry, she helps me with the painting, she tells me what to do with my shows, and you'll see and listen, and I've done nothing. It was all my grandma. So I met her, Mercy, and she's like, I think it's a lot about her time, it's time for her, and I wanted to put her in that position, kind of giving time for her history, not his story. Yeah. So I think that's how she became more and more present, and yeah.
I feel like the last film, which obviously was very much to do with grandmas, was also just going right back to the beginning and to do with communication in a quite an overt way in the end. Like more overt actually than most of your films.
Yeah, I don't know. This was a piece I wanted. It was called Hommage, donc an homage to the grandmothers, but a much wider, not just my own grandma, but all these grandmothers who made it kind of possible for my generation, our generation, to do. So I wanted to just do an homage, and then so I made a film where we gathered and went to Grotto, also in Marseille, and passing on a baton, and so it was a bit more direct, I think, but also, yeah, I don't know. Like I wanted to write that letter from a child perspective, some misgetting things as well, not being able to totally grasp the complexity. But she's.
And it was your own child performing?
No, it's a friend of my children. Accent, you can't understand any. A mixture of 3 languages. It's like worse than me. No, they're great. But it might be in Dutch, and which would be hard for everyone. French, Dutch, English. But no, it's Melissa Gronland. It's a dear friend who's her daughter. I could feel
Melissa's daughter.
Yes, her daughter. Yeah. So she just I just sent the text. She just recorded on the iPhone. And
so you didn't give her any direction?
No.
All her pronunciations and everything are all just her own?
Yeah, just
okay.
Can you read it as you can, and like you're reading a letter to your grandma.
And then Grandma Flying, how did you make that?
I'm not sure. Obviously, we had to have that. I think it was actually, I made a painting like 10, 15 years ago. It's like a woman hanging on a rope, and it was like, I don't know, it was a very short storytelling of her like jumping and liking. And it was also like, I think during the new museum, I think the press here took on the story, and there was like grandmas flying off her. It was like, I can't remember. Anyway, I thought I have to make it for real. So grandma, I think she does it at least once a week, and she's her thing,
She jumps out of a plane once a week, naked, with some Icarus wings.
Yeah, she just loves to see it all from behind, and being a bit of she feels like God, like a diva.
I fly a lot in my dreams, really like that, like really arms out, flying across the city.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is so familiar.
Yes. Yeah, same. I think some people, I also, for Oslo, I asked people to record their dream of flying, and they came out of little pipes around the show, and you could hear people. I'm floating like that, and me too, I fly sometimes.
Yeah, I always jump out a window, but then I fly.
Yes.
I don't fall.
Do any of you fly? Should we all fly off now?
I feel like it's a classic dream thing.
Yeah, it is. And I wonder what's the subconscious. Is it something that humans have always wished we could? Or, how come we have that so strongly in dreams?
Yeah, what's the desire?
Is it clearly that we can't do it personally. I mean, we've invented machines and we've done a lot, but I'm sure there's a side of the subconscious that sort of wish we had wings, or that we could elevate from see things from a bit further. It's also about looking from a distance, I think, a bit.
I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to open up and see if anyone else wants to ask Laure anything. I feel like, we've covered this evening, the films we showed covered over the last decade of your kind of output as an artist. And I think the changes in the way you make things are quite overt in terms of the aesthetic and the process and everything. But how do you think you've changed in that time?
Wow. I've lost any kind of hold on any. My grandma who tells me now. No. No. I think there's a kind of, it's so, when you start, there's a kind of complete freedom. No, you just don't have you don't have a path. You don't have you're trying, you're playing, so I think the more you go, there's more consciousness, I think, and also being part of you're more conscious of the world as a bigger place, and I think so it's maybe it grows a little bit more serious, maybe, or a bit more, I don't know, there's a bit more care, maybe. But it's also, I think the work start to be more, maybe more precise, but there's a danger of being overworked almost. So it's a fine balance, because it's a lot of bad losing, and a lot of mistakes are really important in the work for me. I think moments where you don't know and you try but it's all. It's pretty amazing to be able to grow and invent each day or each show something, and so I don't know how I've changed really. I don't know.
Would you want to make a feature film?
No, never.
Not with your grandma.
No, or if she does it, she can.
I feel like grandma flying could be quite iconic. Like superhero.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not part of this film industry yet. I'm still extremely DIY. My grandma is me in the camera, and it's the film. Hopefully some of you can come to listen to see the show on Thursday, and there's a piece. It's called 440 Beauty, and it's about my last child. So it's about birth and the inner world, where we all little fish right at the beginning, like fish in the stomach moving, and then we turn into mammals, and so it's about this. It's about, I think, the way I don't think I've changed so much in the way I work is in the way that it's about a moment in time and a reaction to a situation or to a place. And she was there, and I was like, am I going to make a film with a 6-month-old? Or let's put her in and let's make a film about that. And also, there's not so many point of view of a female artist looking at birth, or it's always often been from a male perspective or different perspective. And I think to really take it from it's a subject which can be translated or trying to articulate to make a piece out of this beginning of between before being extremely conscious.
It's another form of journey.
Yeah, it's another journey, and so you use the situation or invitation from Oslo or from Houston, and we have to. You work with what's and we had to swim here with a huge octopus to bring it to listen. So you have to come. She's 15 meters long. So
wow!
Something. Yeah, I was on her back.
On that note, does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Laure?
Hi.
Hello.
We talked about language, and I was interested in the register in which it's delivered so often in the films as a whisper, and it makes me think of secrets and childhood and like being an interlocutor and with the audience. And yeah, wondering the meaning of the whisper for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I use a lot my voice. It's something that I think I find it really practical because I'm always there. So it's like, okay, can you record this now? And we do this. But it's also, I think the whisper was really like this, I'm going to tell you a story, I'm going to take you on a trip. And then it's like naive and suddenly it's not naive anymore, but it takes you on it's like a parent to read the story to a child and you're being, I think it's something I think my work became more and more narrative. It became a way to sort of let's take you let's go together on a journey. Let's travel and mentally or subconsciously. And I think it became very consciously used, I guess, and very. It was also very practical, as I say, I'm there, but it's, I guess, like, I was glad to watch the last film. I was like, suddenly I don't hear myself for 10 minutes, and it's kind of nice. I think it just happened. It's a tool, definitely, to, especially again, it's like a character, you're being taken to a place you don't know you're being taken, and it's
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm curious about the use of the French and English, and wondering if, well, I assume French is your first language. Because mine is English, but I've been really curious about the way the languages I learn or try to understand change my ways of thinking, and I'm wondering how much of it was instinctive for you and how much was a conscious choice from one to the other, and like these feelings of intimacy and imagination and transgression and honesty, and when some of those came through more clearly for you in one language or the other.
Yeah, I think it's weird. So French went off my radar for a long time when I moved to London to study art, and I really tackle and try to be Anglophone, or to be able to speak, to communicate, and then I think you have that chance of looking at language from really an outsider perspective. When I go back to France, there's some words who really hurt, or really, because I have this childhood memory of which is less distant. It's really, you feel each word, and being an outsider, I think they're more useful. But you look at them as well as object, as material, as how they written, even how is sea, is it you see, or is the sea, or is it heating, or is it heat, or is it the heat, is it the heat, is it the... So it's like constantly you have that ability to be distant as a foreigner, as an outsider, and then it was also about being an outsider, having that complexity of it. Of course, as articulate, you hardly can get any job. I mean, I could not get any job anywhere, so luckily I'm an artist. It was like the worst. I can't write properly. So how do you? So it became this tool. I'm like, actually, I can play with it. I can work with it. I can create my. So it became really a material. And now when I was invited by France, I was like, oh my God, I can't write an email to us politicians and all this. And you get invited to the Elysee, and you're like, oh my God, like how, it was also a long time I didn't speak so fluently, or even though the new language had changed a bit. And then I looked at French again, we've had the same distance almost, and there's a lot of play on words in the French, in the version, it's a lot of saying, like on dit occupez-vous de vos oignons. In French, you often say people, if you look a bit like that, someone says like, occupe-toi de tes oignons, like, and it means like, take care of your own onions. You're like, why do we say that? You know, why do we say take care of your own onions? But you start looking again at the saying that you hear every day with a lot more distance and humor. And so yeah, it was very important also to be invited back by France, and I enjoy passing between these languages, and Omma JE was really from the Dutch a bit, the German, and so they become interesting material, and yeah. Thank you.
I actually have a question again about octopus, but I realized that every film we watched with this program today had this motif, either like visualization, or I think the last film was like a mentioning of octopus. And I'm just curious to hear like what fascinates you about this amazing biological sea creature. I mean, it has also like history in film from Jean Penleve and all. It was really interesting that it's really like recurrent motif, right?
Yeah. I think first it happened to come into it's actually made a feature film, like, and I thought never again. It was called The Wanderer, which it's still something I'd like to. You've seen it? No, it was at the Rio Cinema, and it was Film London, which was supporting artists to actually do something. And I was at London at the time, which was fascinating. We had all our friends making great project. It was the Lux. I mean, still the Lux is extremely important to me and to a lot of artists. But they sort of supported this bigger project, and suddenly you end up with a huge crew, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do with all these people? And but I worked from a text of Rory Macbeth, is an artist from in the UK who translated a Kafka book from German to English, but with no dictionary and no understanding of German. So it's completely it's like James Joyce kind of dance book, and I say, okay, I'm gonna translate it into a film, and I took all liberties from it again, you know. So it's like the main character Gregor was still there, but so it was obviously about metamorphose, but how he was a writer. His mum was from a completely different background. Everyone was like weird. They live in a castle, but work in a hairdresser. Like everything was kind of a bit unsettling. And then we made actually a piece in the Arch together, so we can explain that. And anyway, the main character actually was a writer, so I thought he needs to write with octopus ink. So he had always his octopus around and start writing huge books, you know, huge letters with octopus. And then she became more and more became this very, having all this tentacle, this idea of us being multi-layer, multi-complex. Also, Venice was really this idea of immediacy. You touch, you feel, you think, you know, not having to go back to the main brain, but having this, and it became more and more important, very important character for me, and also about empathy and becoming one another, becoming octopus, becoming other. So it was about really also the sense of touching and feeling and smelling, and that are as strong as word and language, and you know that they could dominate in the same levels. But then we did this project together. From that film became an invitation for art night, and we made which was a crazy place. We made a vodka bar with vodka and black ink octopus, and there was a DMX piece with reminiscence of the film that would come alive, and you had to wait for long. It was a really bizarre place. No? People had to queue. People had to. It was a whole system. You had to wait for really long to suffer a bit, and then you get into the bar. Then you, because we had suffered installing it as well. For everyone should suffer a bit. But no, it was special, really special piece. we made together. But yeah, that's where the octopus, and she's generous with her ink, and can.
Hi. Really enjoyed the journey tonight, and I didn't know your film, so just seeing them all together was a wonderful sequence. And I'm so curious about your editing. I think you said you're the editor, and maybe you can talk about your process.
Yeah, sure. That's actually when I'm working. The rest is I'm filming. It's always fun and gathering images and people but that's when I always try to push it to last. But that's when I make the piece. Yeah. So it's editing it grows. Usually it's not it's not scripted. Most of the films are not really scripted. Of a little bit still. Like my notion is to jump, and when the last one she just read but it's a bit like a collage or sculpture. I think it's not so different, but it's still very dense. I think sound is actually, I think I work more on the sound than the image almost. I really think sound is sort of something you don't, it's the subconscious of the piece for me. So sound is very important. I'm editing with sound, so it's like the image, or there's a flash of light, the sound change, or it becomes cold or hot or sour, so it's really all the sound and the image are extremely together. I always, when I teach, I often try to get students to never work with ready-made track, or just to really, it's a material as the image. It's the same materiality that you have to create and create tension or space or so yeah, I think it's and it's usually on my laptop or wherever I am. It's not high tech, but it's also time. Some film I can see I didn't work that much, but it's okay. Some film I work more, and sometimes I work too much, and it gets a bit it's too much. But yeah. Yeah, it's that's, I don't know how I could explain it otherwise, but yeah. Yeah.
Your films are just so absolutely beautiful, and so you really have your sense there. When you feel you in it, so when you use your voice to narrate it, is that what part in the editing are you starting to say you're going to come to this world? Blah, blah, blah. When does that happen? It's
a bit. It's as it goes a bit. I'm like, okay, I need a narrator often, because there's all these images from everywhere that keeps coming. Like I film someone in the metro, and you film. I don't know. Often, and when I do lecture, I would like. Normally, I have a camera, and I'll ask you all to scream for granddad to come back, or you use the opportunity, and then you. Yeah, I think the narrate it's just a way to link things really to. If not, it can get really disconstruct, a bit hard to follow. So I think the voice just come in, and it's a tool again. It's in terms of editing, it comes as I'm editing, and sometimes I think, actually here I need something that leads you to the next part, or I need. Maybe I could do it differently. Maybe with just a whistle, like coming. Yeah, I think we could. I think there's many ways, but it's It keeps coming. At first, I don't plan it. I think, and then it feels it's needed. Closer. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and we could continue informally then.
Hi, Laure.
Hey, Linton.
How are you?
So good to see you.
You too. Hi, Kath. Hi. So I've just been hearing the questions, and I've just been formulating one, and there's seemingly like a lot of politics in the work that's always bubbling under the surface. The idea of birds flying is always seemingly about transcending national borders, an idea of the nation state. More broadly, animal kingdom generally don't have to pay to participate in their own life. There's this sort of sense of freedom Humans are the only people that have to do that. But then also in the last kind of film, there's this idea of the naivety of a child sort of describing various crises that we're all going through around overproduction, migration, this kind of thing. So, and for me, the whispering is about collusion. If you whisper to somebody in a room, they'll generally whisper back, and you've already got their attention, and you're in a conspiracy with somebody. So I'm wondering, what role? The question then is, where is the politics in your work, and is it about saying art can do something to galvanize people together? Can you bring a public to this work in the service of a politics, in a way? I wonder, is that serious for you? Or?
No, definitely. Yeah, I think a lot of people perceive my work maybe it's not directly political. I don't think I'm pointing at specific, but I think any artist is political. I think just by creating you do your own system. You're not the system. You're not the system. So you're close to the animal freedom, of being able to experiment places that only you can, almost, because you create your own language or your own. And I think it's a very. And the more it goes, the more you. And I think animal kingdom and nature has always been extremely dominant in my practice. I think, and how. That freedom it has to be what it is, and the world fucks. Who cares? The nature doesn't care, but it's not like the world is ending; it's we ending, and and it's like how at the end it's the beauty of and of course the system in animal kingdoms as well. There's still territories, and there's still. Huge aggression between species, I'm sure, or between birds, and the cuckoo puts his nest, his egg in another bird's nest. I mean, there's a lot of dodgy stuff out there as well, and then it kills them. But it's also I think it's just it's still a possibility. For Venice, it was really like, can we be birds? And it's an ideal, obviously, and but it's still a lot of us think the same in this room or even in the art world, and you feel like I don't know if you're talking to big enough. It's hard to know, but hopefully together still we groups, and the group can get bigger, and we can change things in tiny ways, or just the way we are with each other on the street and everywhere. I guess it's a bit idealistic, but I think there's politics since the beginning of my practice, and but it maybe looked a bit. It's not. It's different kind, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura and Kathy, for joining us. And
thank you, Kathy. Amazing.